As Vladimir Putin continues this invasion and the harsh crackdown inside Russia, really slamming all signs of defense wherever he can, some words from his past are taking on new meaning.
Как это не печально и как это, может быть, не страшно звучит, на мой взгляд, в нашей стране поворот к тоталитаризму на какой-то период времени возможен.
Here with us, John Avlon, CNN senior political analyst, and back, Bianca Rodriguez, CNN senior global affairs analyst. Yeah, I mean, John, Putin has never really hid what he's into or what kind of guy he is.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about that clip is, he's serving in the Yeltsin government. He's recently been in St. Petersburg on a municipal level, but he's doing two things. One, the extended clip is him talking about the importance of democracy, but that Russian tendency to seek comfort in a strong hand, a totalitarian figure. Whether he had any inkling it might be him is as yet, you'd have to be in his head. What's doubly interesting, though, is the next sentence where he says, sometimes that strong hand, though, can strangle us. And there is an example of Putin. I mean, Putin is almost looking into the future in that, imagining what might happen to his country, what is happening to his country, that brief moment of democracy, which was squandered by him, by 20 years of him being in power. You know the old aphorism, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's what we're seeing today.
I think of the Russian analyst and historian Nina Khrushcheva, who you've had on the show quite a few times for the past few weeks, when she was asked recently in an interview if she could describe Putin in one word. She said KGB.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where this takes you. And going back to his mentality, his training, his frame of mind. And it's important to understand when that interview or when those words were spoken. And that was in 1996. This was when the country was in the midst of an economic freefall and collapse following the dissolution, right? And so you have a Soviet Union now completely shattered, multiple states in economic collapse, none relying on the state itself in terms of enterprise and private sectors and business. The shock therapy from the West had failed. There had been a massive amount of poverty and hunger throughout the country, sort of disarray, and crime was up as well. And this was one of the weakest moments in Russia's history. Remember, the currency devalued the next year, defaulted in the 1998 financial crisis in Russia. So this was all leading up to where he was taking this conversation in that train of thought. And that is that this country is in disarray and it needs order. And order is where he took that country quite literally for 20 years.
Look, Jake did a nice job yesterday. Jake Tapper laying out, given a guy who loved totalitarianism from the beginning, how much the United States has accommodated him over the years, and now it's coming home to roost. I want to shift gears and look at U.S. policy for a minute, if I can, because Jim Sciutto noted this a little while ago on our air. A lot of the things and measures that 2-3 weeks ago the U.S. and the administration basically said they wouldn't do now seem like they're on the verge of happening. There does appear to be an urge to stop the import of Russian oil, to ban purchasing of Russian oil, maybe soon, could be today, could be tomorrow. The idea of transferring these MiGs from Poland to Ukraine, that could happen today, tomorrow. A lot of the stuff that was unimaginable now very imaginable, John.
That's how fast things are moving on the ground, and the constant ratcheting up of pressure. What Biden announced, even in his State of the Union, was sort of an opening bid. But it is notable that what he didn't do that night, saying we would put a crackdown on Russian oil, partly was because they were concerned about rising gas prices. Goldman Sachs put out a report saying, actually, it might not have that much of an effect because the U.S. is a net energy exporter now. And as long as the other countries in the U.S. ramps up production, maybe takes a little bit of pressure off the pump with a temporary exercise in the gas tax, that is an additional pressure that Putin and the Kremlin will feel in addition to what's being done.
It does make me think, leading up to this war, how the U.S. had been signaling that there were tabletop exercises within this administration, sort of laying out any sort of possible scenario that they'd be prepared for. And I do wonder if they were prepared for this scenario right now, just 12 days into this war, where Vladimir Putin clearly crossed a Rubicon here, and we are in uncharted territory, and we have a scenario where U.S. officials perhaps returning to Venezuela to release some sanctions against Venezuela and that regime and the Maduro regime to help ease global oil concerns.
It's possible they didn't project the brutality of Putin, but it's also possible that no one imagined the world would really join together in response to that brutality either. Putin may have overstepped here, and that's leading
definitely
easier decisions by the United States. John Bianca, thank you very much.